We have a new sponsor of ROAS. You Are Not Your ROAS is happy to welcome our primary sponsor, retention.com. If you love money, you're going to love retention.com. You'll hear more about them later in a bit. Until then, enjoy this episode of You're Not Your ROAS exclusively on the Triple Whale Network.
All of the stars had to align for this to kind of turn out the way it did, and we're grinding. There were some moments where it's like, damn, constantly questioning whether you're going down the right path. Is it worthwhile for what you're actually doing on a day-to-day basis to even enjoy it? Those questions happen, right? In intense moments. And so, yeah, I mean, there's two sides, and it's just something I think more people should be open about and just be cognizant of themselves.
Welcome back, folks, to another episode of You Are Not Your ROAS. We have the man with the plan, the newly minted morning brewer, Simmy Journey. Simmy, how are you? How are you today? Thank you for stopping in the studio. You've been spending a lot of time on your East Coast at the mecca of content out in Morning Brew.
Dude, thank you for having me. First off, this is great. For those of you that don't know, Triple Whale has an amazing studio here in the office. I'd even rival Morning Brew, some would say.
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna throw it out there.
Spilling tea early and often. I love it. Also powered by Juvie. Shout out, Francis. Fantastic. The blue raspberry is actually really starting to push out the green. I have to hold the line there because I'm a green can guy. But so, Simmy, I really, really wanted to have you on. Not only do you have a really deep connection to the DTC space, but you really cracked the code for short form video, reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok especially. You did some work with, are you still with the My First Million guys?
Yeah, we were.
Yeah. So I mean, in that really
video content
not only skyrocketed to fame, but it was very much on the back of the Rogan playbook of that short kind of paper trail or breadcrumbs to the big meaty episodes. But before we get into that, you're super young, super successful. Give us kind of a little bit of the timeline of like how this started, when you got into it, what happened, what was your first foray into entrepreneurship?
Do it, man. So always been fascinated about businesses, entrepreneurship. And I think that's a commonality that both me and Michael had.
Yep.
Michael is my co-founder.
Yep.
And if you watch the Our Future videos, he's usually the guy you see in front of the screen.
Yeah.
He's awesome. But both of us just really love the media space. We were both podcasters. I was in the daily news space, grew that to the top 75 of the charts, and literally was doing it from my college dorm room. At the same time, I was kind of looking at other podcasters, and I came across Michael. The University of Michigan wrote an article about him, and it was this young hotshot kid getting on the radar of C-suite executives at major companies. I was like, you know what? I would just like send him a message, see what comes out of it. And it's hilarious. I got on a call with him. I was like, dude, what is this kid? Like, he was just like super confident, like eccentric almost. Yeah. And I was like, there's no way. Like, this is like, he's almost like a meme.
Yep.
Like, and we ended up just being great friends. And so along the way, we were growing our podcast, and you know what kind of journey that is. It's a long, slow grind.
Oh my God, you're screaming into the ether for the first. There's that crazy stat, right, where there's only like X% of episode or podcasts that have actually had over like 100 episodes, have published in the last month, etc. It's a grind, man, and you have to be not to cut your flow off because you're flowing, but you really have to be doing it for the right reasons early on, because if not, you're going to fail. Because you candidly, it's just, even Rogan, even the most successful podcasts that you see, unless they came off the back of a network that they're essentially just changing the medium of distribution, it's not like they're starting from the ground up. Like, podcasts are as close, because it's content, they're as close to an exponential as you get, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you. The beautiful thing, though, is that you build the most loyal audience.
I don't think outside of in person, like if we're just talking digital, podcasting is one of the most, if not most, intimate form of communication. I have barely like a tiny bleep in terms of like podcast, and people come up to me all the time at Triple Whale events. Hey, I heard, like, there's this bond that happens when you share 30 minutes to an hour of somebody just talking to you in your ear, especially if you can, like, especially what you do and you guys do really well, is it makes it feel like you're almost like in the room for the conversation. And there's nothing more intimate like it, in my opinion, I think. So it's top tier intimacy.
Yeah, and I think you guys do a great job because it's a part of the community building, right? It is not just the only thing you guys do. You guys throw amazing events.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't get to participate in the Whaleys, but the people that I did talk to, they loved it, right? And so pair that with the podcast and you guys are doing all these incredible things, it just makes for like a better experience and really getting your name out there and building awareness. For us, we went down this podcast route. We were growing. It was kind of a slow journey. It was also in the midst of like the podcasting boom. And what happened was we saw this trend, right, where people necessarily didn't see TikTok as a business content source.
Yes.
People still kind of attributed it to like dancing videos, like random, thirst traps and just really random stuff. Yep. And so Michael at that point decided to pivot his podcast to the TikTok. And so, yes. And so the idea being that we were going to flip the script entirely. And this is kind of like a broader lesson that I've learned about how important it is to connect the dots, right? Like the idea of necessarily business content and podcasting wasn't new, but business content on an emerging platform and then adding B-roll and animations, now you have something, right? And so through that entire process, he started to get millions of views, right? And it was just kind of engaging stories, like, and there's a formula, and we can talk about what that is too. But it started to accumulate millions of views, and it was like, okay, like, now there's an opportunity to create a business out of this. Yeah. And so it was like, let's make a playbook here, right? Like, we're covering general business content. We can go into all of these different verticals. And along the way, we thought we were going to raise money. And so we got like the ex-president of Disney on our board, and it was like, let's go do this thing. Yeah. And we got a bunch of people to like essentially say they were in. And then me and Michael sat back and we're like, should we actually do this? Like, we're looking at Vice, we're looking at Vox. These guys suck. Like, they've raised a ton of money, and now like people don't even take them seriously. And
even BuzzFeed is in that. They're still doing okay-ish, but like at peak BuzzFeed, they were the soup du jour, right? It was like, look how much money they're doing, look at their views, et cetera, et cetera. I think you guys picked the right path for sure.
And I think to BuzzFeed, like their entire shtick is like kind of clickbaity stuff, right? Like
it is what it is. Like walks like a duck, talks like a duck, sounds like a duck, probably a duck. And no, don't hate the player, hate the game. Like, but yeah, I mean, there was to your point of peak, it was like peak listicle. And to be fair, like there's still arbitrage to be had there, but to your point of building something with longevity and sincerity, not to like say these other people are insincere, but you get what I'm saying. Like there's just when you don't go down those paths of getting, like when people put money in your business, do they get to say so? Yeah. This is what it is. And like that's just is what it is. And depending on the founder and depending on the business, that say so can modulate, but there's still an expectation of like, hey man, I put a bunch of money in, don't dance like that or something.
Yeah, man. It's like, how many hands do you want in the pot?
Yeah.
Right? Like, there is a complexity factor, right? Like, now it's not your money, right? And that was the big thing for us. Like, we thought about it, and it's like, yeah, we'll raise money, and like, this will get us the Forbes article, then, like, make us seem like we have clout, but is this actually a good decision for the business, right?
Such a great framing.
Yeah. And so we went down that rabbit hole and we're like, shit, we may not need to do that.
Yep.
Along the way, like this, My First Million contest happened. Michael heard about it on, I think it was hilarious. I remember him calling me. He was like on a walk. He was in California and he's like, dude, I just heard about this contest. I'm going to win this thing.
Yeah.
And so the entire idea was like, we had figured out this formula. We were doing it for our own original content. Yeah. Can we do it for someone else?
Yeah.
And so ended up winning the contest.
Yeah.
And then like shortly down after, we were like, this can be an amazing cash cow for our business. We may not even need to raise money. And so it was just like, let's scale the agency. Let's help other brands do this. And then, we can dive into the morning brew stuff, but that was kind of how we built the foundation for this business.
So crazy. And what was kind of the timelines, like the years from X to Y? This was over what, like a 2 or 3 year period, or even more truncated?
Well, if you include probably the podcasting, I would say in the TikTok aspect of things, it was pretty quick.
Well, you guys up and to the right.
Mostly happened, I would say all of 2022. Like this
I saw it conquered.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So you and Michael killing it, crushing it, and then you get a call, you get a DM. How did MB reach out?
So it's funny. When we were raising money,
Okay.
Michael and Austin had the University of Michigan connection.
Put two and two together. Yeah, powerful Wolverines. Okay.
Yeah. Go Blue. I guess that's my my plug here. But just kidding. We're Indiana guys.
Let's go.
We can't do that.
Come on. Let's go, Hoosiers.
But yeah, he gets in touch with him and it was like, let's have Morning Brew lead the round.
Okay.
So that was the context of the conversation. And Austin was essentially like, yeah, kind of interesting. I'd rather just buy you guys.
Okay.
So it was much one of those things.
Yeah.
We didn't take him seriously. We were just like, in the context of like, obviously like it was a very serious thing to go underneath Morning Brew, but like we weren't excited about it. We were just like, nah, we're gonna do our own thing. We're gonna build the next Wall Street Journal for Gen Z. It was very much like we figured out our path.
Yeah.
And like we're gonna go do this. But we didn't necessarily close the door. And so in the meantime, he was like, okay, let me introduce you to our COO.
Yep.
And you guys just have a conversation with him.
Yep.
And honestly, it took probably 11 months.
Wow. Serious courting. Playing hard to get.
To get it done. And then finally come December, we were like, all right, it's like now or never. We're either going to do this or we aren't. And then it all just happened within a few weeks. And it was like, me and Michael literally just sat there and we're like, dude, I cannot believe this is happening.
That has to be a surreal moment almost. Like for not to be too hyperbolic, but almost like an out of body experience where you're just looking at yourself like, what the fuck did just happen? Like I built this. One of the I think Morning Brew is one of the best content things like shops out there right now. Like it's incredible. The neat like Market Brew is amazing. Morning Brew proper is amazing. Austin seems like good people. Like what a perfect fit.
Yeah, they're amazing. It's it was one of those feelings where like there were several points across the year where me and Michael looked at each other and we're like, this deal ain't happening. Like, whatever. Like, we're just going to go do our own thing.
Yeah.
And then when it finally did happen, it's like that moment where you're like sitting there and you're starting to get goosebumps and like in that moment, you don't want to say it out loud because you don't want to jinx it, right? That the deal could fall.
Commentate until the wire hits, dude. Nothing is final.
And that is like the biggest thing. Like, don't assume if it's not in writing and if it's not signed, like you don't have something. And that applies to sales. That applies to literally every aspect of running a business.
100%. I would even go as far as like, even if it's in writing, man, until the funds like hit the bank account, like nothing's final. I mean, obviously there's like legal ramifications that you can go and like, there's some insurance policies, but man, I've had so many either sponsorships, secondaries, and like you kind of start spending the money before you have it or blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? You just, oh, yeah, I'm going to get this fat check. And they're like, oh, no, you're not. You're like, oh, man. So it's that. But then when it does hit, you see some comments in the bank account, like, man, this is life's good. That's what we doing here, boys. That is so cool, man. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I think I always wanted to be a very successful entrepreneur, but more through like a means to an end.
Yep.
Which was, it probably sounds bad to say, but I've always just wanted to be extremely wealthy and respected. Like that was what guided me. Yeah. And it's just like, I was never like an impact driven guy per se, or like, sure, I think after a certain point you think more about those kinds of things and philanthropy and stuff. But candidly, it was like, I just want to be as rich as I possibly can.
Yeah, stacks of paper, kid.
Yeah. And what are the opportunities out there that I can go seize and go do that?
Yeah.
And that's kind of guided it. So I've always seen business as kind of this means to an end up for this lifestyle I wanted to create for myself.
How old are you?
I'm 24.
World by the balls. It's crazy. It's incredible.
Well, I mean, a lot of it is also luck too. Like
Luck and timing, I would argue, are the most important things in business success. However, they're also usually a function of like you have to be prepared when that luck and timing hits and the universe knocks on the door. You have to be prepared when you answer. And I think that a lot of people don't succeed because they don't either wait for the universe to knock and they're too impatient, or two, when the universe does knock and they answer, they're not prepared.
Let me ask you, was there ever an inflection point or something you can point back to where it was like this changed the entire course or direction of your career or your life at that point?
Great. I've had a couple. So one was, I used to be super, super So I went to school for economics, got out of school in 2008, go me, and it was just decimated. The job market was just atrocious. So I ended up getting my old job after, or that I had previously, where it was selling women's shoes, and that was horrible. It was really not only horrible, but like the odd conversations that you have of like, because you make a lot of small talk and you're like, oh yeah, oh, what do you do now? I just graduated school. Oh, with what? Oh, the serious degree. And then they start like doing the mathematics in their head. They're like, then why the fuck are you here like sizing me for shoes in a department store? So from that, I knew I never wanted to do that again. I never wanted to feel that again. And so I started getting into digital marketing. I hooked up with a friend of mine. She was fantastic. She's was actually my buddy's wife. And she was this like really big yogi. It had a pretty decent Instagram following, like 150, 200K, that kind of thing. Like not like super, super massive, but to your point of intimacy, the people that did follow her, kind of like Kevin Kelly style, 1,000 true fans, like the people that did follow her would do stuff. And she was really good at handstands. And we ended up, she moved out they bought a place in Costa Rica. And so I was also into photography at the time. So I went out to Costa Rica and just shot an ebook. And then we're like, hey, cool. Now how are we going to get this out? Like after a few posts on Instagram, I'm like, oh, cool. I'm like, oh, dude, I heard about these Facebook ads. The news feed had just kind of popped off. And I was like, oh, cool. Let's start some Facebook ads. And then ran ads. And from then on, I was like, oh my gosh, instead of like building websites for people and like building them a cash register, it's way easier to ask for way more money when you're actually making people money. And I saw like, this was at the like peak Facebook time where it's like you put $1 in and you were getting like $5, $7 back. And you're like, wow, this is how does this machine work? I don't care. Just keep putting more and more. So that was a really big inflection point of me understanding value vectors and the things that I was good at. Like I was always kind of this big generalist, or more like a T-shaped where I could go deep on a lot of things. But what I realized was a lot of life's successes are more reductive than additive. Like being able to take things out of my life, concentrate on things and focus on a certain thing than trying to be everywhere was really the path for me. And also just kind of making really intentional bets. So I was like, wow, this, like, essentially I wrote down what I'm really good at and what I love to do, and where those overlaps happen was essentially technology, marketing, brand building, all these, like that was my nexus of genius, but it was also my nexus of excitement. And so it was that perfect overlay. And then I just started going ham on that. So that was a really big inflection point for me to finally have some sort of direction in my life, because I wanted to be an investment banker for a really long time. And then I went and shadowed an investment banker, and then I was like, oh, cool, you're rich at like 40, but like you basically mortgage your 20s. Like it's just a really, it's just a really hard gig. It is what it is. And then from that, I got hired on at Whole Foods for running all the paid media for the recruitment vertical. So that was kind of like a really cool, like, oh man, I got to do the whole Austin thing. I'm in Austin. I'm working for Whole Foods. It was awesome. Then I got to do agency life, ran ads for Oprah. Like celebrities, like there's definitely different types of celebrities, but like the Oprah effect was real. Like we were allowed to include her in ads. Like shit works, yeah. Like I'm sure there's different variations of, or there's a different strata of celebrity, but like, Oprah moves needles. Then I started my own agency and ended up at Triple Whale. So it was kind of this weird mismatch of like, the jobs, you can't connect the dots forward, only backward. And so I kind of started in this really weird place and then ended up really kind of doing what I really want to. Like, I think eventually I want to your point, stack some paper and like do some angel investing or something. I feel like that's because that's kind of, I'm not investing the money, but that's kind of the market we're in now with DTC, where you see people at their really, like, I don't want to say quote unquote happiness, but like they have such a purpose. Like when you meet like a really proper, awesome DTC founder, there's nothing but belief, faith, like this won't fail. And whether they're right or wrong, I don't know. But like that's what you need to really, in my opinion, succeed in entrepreneurship, is a delusional perseverance that I don't care how I get it there, but like I'm going to cross the finish line, whether it's with 2 shoes, no shoes, a shoe, pulling a cart, like it's going to get there. And so, yeah, that was a big roundabout answer, but tons of inflection points, but mostly it was basically like getting into Facebook ads really opened my eyes into what you can actually ask for when you actually make people money.
Yeah. I mean, what stands out to me, one is like, I totally agree. Conviction is key, right? Like, delusion and just having almost like a blind faith in yourself, which is, I mean, if anybody who claims to have it all figured out is probably like smoke and mirrors, right?
100%.
Because like day to day life happens, changing. It's more of like, how can you roll with the punches and make the most of it?
Couldn't agree with more.
And I think what's also interesting is like in kind of like your past journey or the previous experiences, like they all played a role to get you where you are now, right?
That's the so have you ever seen Slumdog Millionaire?
Oh,
Forever, but
it's been a while.
yeah. So for people that don't know, so essentially there's all these like disparate, seemingly disconnected events, but they basically all, add up to this young man's life experiences, and he can win this game show because of all these things. And so that's kind of how I felt, because I was always like getting all these skills that like just candidly specialists get paid more. Like, and so I was always this generalist, and so like gathering all these skills, but then you get into like management, then you get into leadership, then you get in all these stuff, and all those skills begin to matter again, because now I can talk to the designer at a really high level, I can talk to the developer at a really high level, like I coded, I've designed, I've done all these things. And so it very much was that kind of all these things seem disconnected, but at a certain resolution, you can see the connections.
So true. I wonder now, like, something that stands out to me about you is obviously like you're very intelligent, you've got the business side down, but you're also like a people person, right? Like I see
Gas him up. This is not an ad, people. This is not paid for.
I see you like I can see you at events and stuff, and like that feels like an area where you really thrive. It's just, it stands out to me.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, man. Definitely, for better or worse, you know what I mean? You're usually some variation of your parents. Right. And I had, my dad is an immigrant. He's Algerian and came over. And so actually they did, I can't remember the study, but I had this like really awesome, my parents were awesome, but my mom was American and Mexican. And so supposedly like an immigrant parent and then a fluent first speaker or a fluent person in that language is like a really great recipe for success, because you get the hard work, but there's no language barrier, and et cetera, et cetera. And my dad just taught himself English, came over at 18 and would just go to the library and figure it out, and talking helped him. And so he's just this chatty Cathy. And I realized, like, have you ever done any trips with your parents now that you're older?
India.
Okay.
The usual.
Yeah. So I went to Morocco 2 years ago with my dad and my family. My dad remarried a Moroccan woman. And I didn't realize like how much I was my dad, for better or worse, right? So it was a really awesome self-reflection, but he's the most like people person on the planet. Like he's just a really chill dude. So, and I don't know, I think people are fun. I think life's more fun. Like there's a great Krakauer quote from Into the Wild, where happiness is only real when shared. I definitely think you need your internal clock, right? Like you need to do the things that fill you up, and there's an internal guidance system that you have. But yeah, it's just like for example, I'm not super into like nomading or like single travel. I like a partner with me, whether it's like a friend, significant other, what have you. But I don't know, I guess it's just, I mean, you're kind of the same way too. You're kind of like extrovert, introvert like me, where like you want your alone time, but at the same time when you're at the party, like you're shaking hands, kissing babies.
100%. It's kind of like a switch, right? Like dialing it on, right? Like I feel like truly you do need both. You can't just be secluded all the time, and you can't also be with people all the time, right? Like it's when you find that balance. What is that balance is also hard to define, but
For sure.
that's also where I seem to do the best, which is having like a healthy mix of both.
Yeah, I definitely found the line stepped over a few times. Like travel can be really hard sometimes as well. Yeah. And you just kind of get wore down where, like a good heuristic for me is like if I'm doing something that's like objectively fun and I'm like not looking forward to going to it, I know I'm probably like either burnt out or getting close to burnt out, because that's probably my biggest regret as CMO of Triple Whale, where I'm trying to get back into like, I used to meditate all the time. And so I'm reading Miracle of Mindfulness again by Thich Nhat Hanh, which is super awesome. But there's a line in there where it's essentially, if you can't wash the dishes to wash the dishes, you're never going to be able to do anything else, because you're just constantly going to be looking like you're not living life. Like you're not in the present, and you're constantly living in the future. And that's also kind of the thing. If you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious to live in the future. Like, be in the present and enjoy these moments where, so I didn't, like, we did so many cool things, dude. We did a reality TV show. We did a pickleball tournament. We did all these things. But, like, when I look back on it, it was always like, how can I make it grow more? How can I do this? And how can I do that? Which is good to a point, but, like, you know, what a crazy ride. And I didn't, like, stop the car every now and then to look at the mountains. And so I think that's if I would give a lesson to, like, the aspiring entrepreneurs or people that, like, it's okay to every now and then, you know, stop the car and look at the beauty of what you built. Like, you don't want to stay there too long, but at the same time, like, I really regret not stopping the car. And then you never know when it's going to stop. You know what I mean? Like, whatever happens, you always want to be able to be like, oh man, you know. So that's kind of, for me, something that I really wish I would have had more insight into, just being like, dude, I know life is crazy, but, like, look at what you built. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I think everyone looks at the output, but it's not, the behind the scenes is very, very different, right? Like, everyone sees all the cool stuff you guys do, and then they don't realize how chaotic it probably is to get these things off the ground. I mean, I'll speak from, like, what me and Michael did with our future, right? Like, if you were to just read any of the press we've gotten, or from kind of like what you may see on Insta or whatever, right? Like, it's like, oh, like, this must have been super easy. They just make TikTok videos. Like, they just got lucky, right? They found their thing and it worked out, and they sold a company in, like, very, you know, short timeline. And it's like, no, there were some, like, very uncertain moments. Like, all of the stars had to align for this to kind of turn out the way it did. And we're grinding. There were some moments where it's like, damn, like, constantly questioning whether you're going down the right path. Is it worthwhile for what you're actually doing on a day-to-day basis? Do you even enjoy it? Like, those questions happen, right? In intense moments. And so, yeah, I mean, there's two sides, and it's just something I think more people should be open about and just be cognizant of themselves.
Yeah, no, super well put, man. I mean, it's so much wisdom crammed into a lot of words. Like, it's really, really where it's at, though, is, like, understanding. And, you know, like, the old cliche, though, if it's hard, everybody would do it type. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So there's a certain big UFC fan, and there was a UFC this weekend, and Israel Adesanya won, and he finally put all these demons to death. And he had this really inspiring speech.
Yeah.
And it kind of perked something up in me, because when I look back on it, he's right, where essentially this guy had beat him 3 times in the past, one in MMA, twice in kickboxing, knocked him out once in kickboxing, knocked him out once in MMA. It was kind of a TKO, so it wasn't like a cold knockout. So this guy's fighting for his life. And he finally knocks him out. And in the post-conference, he said, I hope you all can feel how happy I am. But the happiness, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the happiness is a function of how hard I worked to accomplish this moment. Like, all, to your point of, like, all the boring stuff, all the things I was getting up early, all this stuff that culminates into the work. And, you know, I thought it was really inspiring for me, because that way you can really keep the morale up, because it's a day-to-day process. Like, the future only comes in one day. And all that gets packed into a performance that is backed by all that hard work. There's just something to really be said about, like, when you really go in on something, and to your point, like, you know, burn the ships. We're committed. We're going inland, and we either figure it out or we don't. And then when you do figure it out, that is such a intoxicating feeling that it can almost be, like, become like a drug, where you search that out again and again and again.
It really is. And you may not have realized it, but there's a viral TikTok clip in what you just said.
See? Here we go. Already coming up. Well, I mean, speaking of, you guys were crushing it. I mean, talking about how people think it's just this, like, quirky little clip, dude. I mean, we would have strategy sessions. We would do all these things. I mean, you guys were so big brain, but the challenge was we had kind of just, we were giving you guys, like, rubber bullets, and you guys were like a 50 cal. And it was just, you guys are incredible what you do. And the narratives that you guys were able to weave, to your point of, I think people experience the world in stories. And the stories that you guys can build, not only in such a short amount of time, but the visuals and the captions and the way you guys compose those really was art. It really is art. Let me ask you one more question, because I want to get into your art now. See that segue, folks? Pros here, pros. What's the nicest thing someone has done for you?
Nicest thing someone has done for me.
the deep breaths, the contemplative looks. This is going to be a good one, folks.
I would say it's my high school counselor.
Really?
Yes.
No.
Yes, and I'll tell you why. What he pushed... For me, it was always, I had this desire in my life to go build something, make a lot of money doing it. But I wasn't putting myself in the right environment.
Love that.
Right? To actually go do that. Like, I was playing football and all this stuff and, like, partying and all that stuff, but that's not actually going to drive me.
Yeah.
And I sat with my high school counselor at the time, and he's like, Simran, what is it that you want to achieve? So I tell him. And he looks at me and he says, why are you trying to go to these schools where you know you're not, that's not an environment that's going to enable you to do that? And I was like, okay, well, Mr. Shelbourne, where would you say? Where should I go? What do you think? And he didn't necessarily come and just give me the answer, but he helped me get to the right conclusion.
Yep.
He was like, have you ever considered Wabash?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't even know what Wabash is. Yeah. And he's like, think on it, think critically, check it out. And if you're looking for focus, this school could be the one for you. And it ended up being like this really small school, but everyone was on there. Everybody wanted something big for themselves. Everybody was willing to go against the grain.
Yep.
And that is the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me, which was not only did they kind of change my entire direction, but actually, like, it was something that was motivated by action rather than just words, right? Like, instead of just reassuring me or saying like, hey, don't worry, you'll get there eventually, right? It was like, no, he actively pushed me in a direction that he knew would be influential and consequential for my life.
Ooh, that's a bar.
Right? And so I think that is the nicest thing someone has done for me outside of like maybe stuff my family or, you know, your mom or dad might do.
I love that, man. My high school counselor was absolutely atrociously useless. I was at a massive high school, to be fair, though. So
the Ben Davis.
Yeah, the BD stuff, but powerful Wabash. Also an all-guys school. Beautiful campus, though. Beautiful campus.
Yeah. This is kind of funny. So me and Rabba went to high schools that aren't even 30 minutes apart. Yep. So it's just kind of funny. We're in Austin.
Yeah, and I partied at Wabash as well. I forget. One of my best friends actually ended up going down there. I forget what house he was in, but really beautiful campus, man. Really good school. Super strong school. All right. You were teasing at the beginning. You guys might have, not that everything's formulaic, but you guys kind of have like a meta theory or a meta formula for how to give your clips the highest chance of virality. Spill beans, the tea.
So I think it's playing into the storytelling aspect, right?
Yep.
With storytelling, right, like there's one goal in mind, and it is, what emotion do you want to invoke?
Ooh, I love that.
Like, do you want to feel entertained after? Do you want to feel informed after? Do you want to feel separate, inspired, whatever that looks like?
Interesting. I love that.
And so then it's like, how do you craft a story that gets you to that point?
Yeah.
The issue that you come across and why most podcasts don't work on TikTok or whatever content is people are way too technical, right? Like, they're getting way too deep into tactics. And then you have to realize that that's not how you reach the masses.
Right.
How you reach the masses is by having some bigger theme or bigger learning or takeaway, and then intertwining that in a story of some kind, right? And so, like, if we're talking about, we're talking about life lessons here, but let's say it's some DTC tactic of some kind that I want to do. I need to lean into an idea bigger than what I'm talking about. And so, like, what is an example of that? I might lean into pop culture, right? I might talk about how Jake Paul and KSI, do ads for Prime, right? I might go the trending news side, right? Like, so is it something that I can pull off from something that's trending, current events, news focus, that I can intertwine into my story?
Yeah.
Is it something that has big numbers or recognizable names, right? It needs to be broadly familiar and recognizable to where, as I'm scrolling, I'll stop and I'll say, oh, wait, this is interesting. I know about this. And then kind of subconsciously letting them take the learnings away, right? Because you have to be cognizant of the way these platforms work, right? Like, people don't scroll to learn, right? They're scrolling to be entertained. And so if
well put.
if you can find this balance where not only they're entertained, but you got the point across that you wanted, you're in a great spot and you can scale that.
Retention.com is not only just sponsoring your Not Your ROAS, Retention.com is here to help you make more monies from your email campaigns. They're an amazing resource for marketers, and you can see all their podcasts and resources right on their site, including the 5 fundamental flows you need to grow. Go check it out at Retention.com or in the link below. Now back to the show. That's such a really interesting way to think of it. So when people are creating content, what kind of mindset, or should they start out before they even, because I was reading something about Mr. Beast where he was saying, and obviously not now, or not back then, but, or maybe even, I don't know, that he won't make a video if he doesn't instantly have kind of the idea of the optimal thumbnail in his head. And so for that transition, like, what do you think the optimal thumbnail, so it's, you want to have a big takeaway and then you want to link it to some sort of either something in the zeitgeist or some sort of layer of familiarity that they can have, and then sprinkle takeaways in that and wrap it in a whole nice narrative, and boom, you got a little possible viral little pizza clip together.
Totally. And I think it's also incorporating like the rules of the game, right? Like,
yeah.
And so what matters? Like watch time matters, right? Like comments matter. Yeah. And so it's like, how can you drag the story out in a way that you can keep people there as long as possible? Right. So it is like your traditional storytelling, but it's also knowing what works on each of these platforms and then trying to play the rules or trying to format these clips or these videos in a way that you can actually do well.
So interesting. Who do you take inspiration from? Who's doing this really well?
So I would say in the business content side, like it's funny because a lot of people now model themselves after us.
Right. Yeah. Right? Fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like we were kind of the first ones doing this, right? And now there's a new copycat every day, right? It's just like, and it's funny. Our editors have sent me screenshots of people being like, "Hey, can you make us an Our Future style video?" And so that like we become the reference.
Oh, I love that.
So right now, I'll tell you, like, our focus isn't necessarily, it's not necessarily like emulating off of other people and like incorporating, but it's like, what is the next emerging trend? So like right now, like I'll tell you for Michael, what he's most interested in is like these AI capabilities. And so he's changed his avatar. So it's not even him in these videos. It's now like this cartoon-esque person. And so like, I know that's going to be the next wave. And it's just a matter of time where people are now going to their AI person and being like, make us an AI, Our Future style editor. So it's just funny. It's more of like, let's just see what else is happening and seeing what can we incorporate into our videos rather than being like, here are some other business influencers and let's just take what they're doing well.
100%. No, I think you're absolutely spot on there. How do you see Instagram Reels versus YouTube Shorts versus TikTok?
I think it kind of depends on like what the goal is, right? Like,
so let me give you some more, because sometimes constraints can create clarity. So I am a DTC brand. Say I'm doing, most of our people are doing around 5 to 50 million. So call it, 10 million. So not a lot, not a little. And I have a base presence, we'll call it, on my social channels. But I haven't yet found like what I'll call product channel fit. So for us, we found really heavy product channel fit on Twitter, where it just really worked and took off. We're actually, Instagram's starting to become a little bit of a sleeper channel for us. And LinkedIn is great for us because we're in B2B SaaS, but I don't know the efficacy in terms of D2C, so we'll keep it in the D2C. So say I'm running a $10 million brand, D2C in, call it apparel. We have a ton of apparel companies. How would you kind of think through that strategy for them where it's like, hey, I want to bet on short-term or on short form video. I heard this really smart guy, Simmy, talking about how important it was. What would your advice be to that brand?
I think if the goal is purely conversions, like how can I...
That's a good point. I always start, this guy's a fucking pro. Always starting the goal with mine. Let's call it, well, I guess, let's talk through conversions first.
How do you make money from this?
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, I love that.
So the way I would think about it is like, which platforms are most conducive to virality from the kind of content that you're making?
Is that TikTok for you still?
It can depend.
Okay.
I'll go into what
perfect.
incorporates that. And then the B is like, what is the most or the lowest friction or most seamless to achieve a sale?
Oh.
And so, for example, if I think about like, what are the platforms that have the lowest friction? I would actually say it's Instagram, and I would say it's TikTok, right? And it's so funny because I know brands, or I know people, I'm not even going to call them out, but they'll take their TikTok videos and then run them as ads on Facebook, and that kills for them, right? And so...
but not the inverse.
Not necessarily the inverse. And that's kind of the interesting thing, right? So like in Instagram Reels, it's kind of all built in one. I actually think that platform is most conducive for commerce. And the reason is like, it's all you have to do is swipe up on a story. It takes you directly to the website, right? Like there's so many built-in features that people use that you can funnel for, right? So I think like stories is a great way. I think with IG Reels, I had a case study on Shopify recently as to why they're doing this so well. So those would be the two platforms that I think you can do really well on. With TikTok in specific, I think that you kind of have to push the boundaries a little bit, right? Like in a way that you don't necessarily have to do on Instagram Reels. What I've also noticed is that Instagram Reels is the most consistent in terms of like, you may not have say TikTok viral kind of growth, but it's consistent up and to the right kind of growth, right? And so like there's more of a foundation there versus like with TikTok, you're just hoping this video lands, right? Like it can go in either direction, right? Like you can have 0 followers and a video do 1 million views. Or you could have 1 million followers and a video do 500 views, right? And so you're kind of just like throwing darts at the pool.
Free tickets a lot on TikTok.
Yeah, and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, that's kind of what we've seen on the paid side as well, where the replicability, I don't know if that's a word, being able to produce success consistently was much easier on Instagram than it was TikTok. The other interesting, those are so many great points. The other interesting thing is they both have pretty high ceilings, where that's one of our challenges with Twitter. It's like Twitter is incredible. The people on there are incredibly influential, but it's a super low ceiling. You know what I'm saying? Like the user base just isn't there. Whereas TikTok and Instagram, I mean, even YouTube as well, like those are massive platforms with those are really high ceilings. So if you can win there, you can go deep. But the problem, to your point, is sometimes it's hard to replicate success in TikTok because there's really nothing's really linked to your profile. Whereas Instagram, there is some semblance of like you're following, what you're doing, like TikTok's essentially like America's Funniest Home Videos, like, but at the user level, where it's like it's just showing really, really interesting stuff and it throws it at you. It's one of that kind of breaks my brain that it can be so like that algorithm, dude. I can't even have it on my phone. Like it'll take me away. That algorithm is just something else. Whereas Instagram still feels like safe for me. I don't know. Maybe that's an okay boomer comment, but like I think you're right. The easiest pathway through conversion is Instagram. But I mean, people kill it on TikTok. You guys are proof of that. I know tons of brands that do it. There's definitely a certain AOV ceiling. I think that it starts to like longer consideration products, or the way I've been describing TikTok, especially for kind of over $50 AOV products, is it's great at generating attention, but not great at generating intention. Where sometimes that getting that people off the platform to do the thing is a lot bigger ask than on Instagram per se.
Yeah, I think it's also like you can create CTAs and stuff that kind of get you to that point on TikTok, whereas like explicitly calling it out or coming up with something creative, right? Like when I look at the videos we make for our future, probably why they're so effective is because they're native ads.
Yeah.
So it's like taking in our traditional storytelling format, highlighting some specific angle that is like consistent with our brand and our theme, and then at the end we'll plug the product, right? Or something like that. One other distinction I wanted to make, just kind of as you were speaking and made me think of, is like, who are you selling to, right?
Fair
like,
play.
For you guys are like B2B, right? So Twitter makes most sense, right? Because, or it can make a lot of sense because a lot of who your customers are going to be your like the the people with actual budgets and decision-making authority are probably living on Twitter. But if you're consumer focused, then I would say IG Reels and TikTok make the most sense.
Totally with you. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Is Twitter and LinkedIn have been really good places for us, just to your point of like, go to the places that your people are. That's brilliant. Was there any video that absolutely exploded that you're like, there's no way this should be in this well?
For us or for others?
Or either or, any funny story.
We've had so many different kinds of advertisements. There was one for a crypto company we did, kind of in the boom. And I think we lowballed them on price and then instantly ended up regretting it. I remember the company, funny enough. It was called Tall. Okay. Just this random crypto mining energy company. And like the TikTok blew up, whatever, right? And I don't even think they like renewed with us because like
it did so well and just like let it run.
Well, no, it wasn't even that. Like I don't think it met their standards. And me and Michael, I think were like a little baffled. Like we're like, this video crushed. Like this performs so well. What are you talking about? So that was like one of those kind of funny experiences. That's the thing with TikTok. There's been like videos that we thought were very, very good and they don't perform. And then there's one time, it was a funny story. We had Jackson, who was one of our other creators. His entire page was focused on like business curiosities, or it was called Our Future Bites. And he made a video about asbestos or the business and asbestos. And me and Michael were like, we need to have a conversation. Like, this is not brand consistent. And like, what the hell is this? It ends up blowing. No, and Jackson was like, listen, I hear you guys, but like, look at the numbers. Okay, so I'm gonna just keep doing what I'm doing. And I was like, okay, well, like,
that's amazing.
Whatever. Who knew TikTok wanted to learn about asbestos? But here we are.
There's a funny John Madden quote. He called it the no go, where when the guy returns the football. Sorry for going to sporty ball, but follow along. So the guy's returning the kick from the end zone, and the coach is like, no. And then he breaks out, and then he starts running for the touchdown. It's like, go. And then here's one of those no, go-goes where you're like, no, this is, oh, wow, look at these numbers. This is amazing.
It's hard to argue against numbers, man. Like, when the results are there, I can throw as much anecdotal evidence as I can, but, like, you can't argue with that, right?
There's a great Bezos line where he says, if you come to me in an argument, I will always win, but if you come to me with data, I'll at least listen.
Love that.
Yeah, because you're right, man. I mean, to be fair, you can make data say some unique things, but to your point of like these really core metrics of like, dude, look at the viewership, the watch time, et cetera, et cetera. That's so interesting. What do you think the chances are of the TikToks getting got? Do you think it's going to get banned in the States?
I think it could.
Really?
Yeah, I think it could. But I've made a very active effort and intention by saying that, like, the issue is most people are still equating TikTok and short form as the same thing. Like,
so like Kleenex and tissue.
Yeah, it is. It's like people think of them one and the same. They'll be talking about short form and they want the other platforms, but they'll call it a TikTok.
So well put.
Right? And so what that tells me is, one, like, this medium is still here to stay. It is just the other platforms will either take advantage of it or B, something new will come up, right? Like, what was it? Like, TikTok started some other app. I think it's called Lemon 8 or whatever, and it's like the most viral app right now, right? There's always going to be someone new. So the thing to remember is just that the medium is proven out. People consume content this way, and that's not going anywhere. I'm making an active effort just with all of our clients is like, let's just not put all of our eggs in one basket. Let's get you on Instagram. Let's get you on YouTube Shorts. And so, like, yeah, if it does go, like, it would suck, right? But, like, at least you still got two other platforms that, if anything, like,
they're not horrible either. Like, honestly, like, Instagram Reels is sensational. And honestly, you're seeing this a little bit in Twitter as well, where Elon do your thing. But to be fair, Twitter's a bit of show. Like, breaks all 1000%. Have no clue what's going on there. Like, it's kind of just the inmates running the asylum. But one thing they have hit, and to your point, maybe it's just this like super pattern match / like human thirst for this, but like the reels on, or I don't even know what to call them, but I guess short form video on Twitter, when you pop in them, they have those little things on there and you pop in them. It's actually not a horrible experience. One of the better ones on the platform. Instagram Reels not bad. YouTube Shorts not bad.
I love YouTube too, right?
Same, 100%.
Yeah. I think that's actually if you're focused on like audience building, I love YouTube the most. That's the one that's going to stay and I think will continue to win over the long term. And right now we're in this like golden period where like, even with Reels and Shorts, it's such a great time to really build this audience, because at some point, and it could be when TikTok is banned or when that happens, these platforms are going to get even more saturated. So like take advantage of these moments where they're competing with each other and you're almost rewarded, right? Like it's one of those things where we were probably doing well over 100 million views a month for the early part of last year. And it was because we were new. We were one of the first players. So like recognize those moments and then take advantage of them, because these algorithms are not always going to be on your side and they're not always going to be rewarding, which is partially why we sold, right? Like it was, we didn't own our distribution, and it was like with Morning Brew, there's a sense of security here, 100%. Right? It's like they have an email list with over 4 million subscribers. Yep. That's not going away.
Correct.
So
own media. I love that. That's brilliant, man. That's brilliant. Okay, we're pushing close to an hour. Let's see what else I got for you before jumping to rapid fire. What's more valuable? Because you touched on the platform parity. If you could have YouTube subscribers, TikTok subscribers or followers, I guess, or Instagram followers, what would be your preference?
I love YouTube.
YouTube, same, right? I feel like you can, and for lack of, sounding a little bit like hyper capitalistic, like I feel like they're the easiest kind of user base to monetize. But I think TikTok can be challenging at certain price points. Instagram, not horrible. I think it could be okay, but because I think to your point, like understanding why the person's there, there's such I don't want to say easy, but such a fertile education play on YouTube. And when you help somebody, especially if you help them, 1, A, for free, and 2, early on in their brand touch point with you, man, you've built up so much emotional reciprocity that as long as you give them something that's of value and creating value, or you can use YouTube to show the values of your products, there's so many cool, interesting plays there that I really think a YouTube subscriber that'd be my pick.
Yeah, I think also to a point you were making, which is intentionality. Yeah. Like, if you think about it, Shorts is now this way too, right? Like you can scroll and it's like a feed, and they've kind of mirrored the algorithm, like the ways of Instagram Reels is the same way. But there's still intentionality. If I'm trying to find a page or I'm trying to find a video, I still have to go to the search bar and type it.
Second biggest search engine.
Whereas like, if I'm going to a brand, sure, sometimes people may do it, but usually it's just them scrolling on the feed and then coming across something interesting. And so it's more passive versus like an active effort.
So well put. Okay, last question, and then we'll get into rapid fire. What impact do you think AI is going to have in terms of media generation, or kind of really in your scene of being able to put clips together, because there was kind of people joking about like being able to almost have like a chat GPT style-esque of like, if you do find that either like an ADA framework or something, and you just have these frameworks and you just start to modularly plug things in, or so on and so forth. Like, what is your take on AI, and are you guys leveraging it at all?
Yeah, we're leveraging it right now. I would say that like we're thinking about using it as a catalyst. 100%. One thing that I would make a distinction of here is that if you're a mid-level creative person, this equals the playing field. Now everyone can be good, but you're still not going to be great. You still have to be really, really good at content to know, like, to actually be able to take you to the next level. I would put us in that box. It's like, we know what we're doing, and we can just use this as a tool to get to the next level. But does this mean that someone who's mid is now going to be as good as us? No. Like, I think that this just makes all of the subpar players at the same field. But I think if used right, the good players can use this to become great. And in a way, like, what's interesting is too, if you're on this early, right, you can really make a mark.
Yes.
Right. And so like, you should be paying attention. What I would also say, and this is a bit contradictory, is like, don't just ditch everything you're doing. Right. For something like this, because it's still very new.
Yeah.
a lot of these platforms are going to change.
Yep.
There's going to be more plugins. You don't know what apps are going to still exist, what isn't, 3-4 months from now.
Yep.
So I would say like experiment. That's how we're kind of going about it, is like we're experimenting, we're playing with it, but it's not like we're going to ditch something that we know works for something that's unproven.
No, so well put.
That's something I would say just keep in mind.
I love that. And I think that's a really good sign of a really, quote unquote productive technology, is that like the average work that gets done just gets a little bit better. And then the killers are just augmented. And then to your point, there can be some, raise in your not only output, but ideation, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're always following, you're always going to be a step behind the people that are actually leading.
Yeah, I think it's like, if you want to use it for, say, operations purposes, right? Like, it's then the game changes a little bit, right? Like, if I was, I don't know, a copywriter of some kind, right? Like, I would use this as one, an ideation tool, like ChatGPT, and then second is like creating a foundation, but it still depends on me as an editor and being able to revise it to make it unique, right? And it stand out from anything else out there.
Simmy, this is a banger. You ready for the rapid fire?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Let's start out with a little bit overrated, underrated. YouTube, overrated, underrated.
Underrated still.
I love it. TikTok, underrated, overrated.
Maybe a little overrated.
Oh, amazing. Indianapolis, overrated, underrated. I had to go the homer pick, right?
You know what? That city's still gonna grow.
Let's go. Underrated. Favorite place travel to and why?
Florence.
Really? Italian. Amazing. I love it.
It was beautiful. It felt like a city with so much peace in it. And it was like, I thought I was on the train with my mom and my brother, and I was like, this is where I'm going to spend my days when it's all said and done. And so probably I would say Florence.
Florence. I love that. Did you buy anything fancy when you got a little bit of the payout? What was any fun thing?
Michael bought a pretty nice Beamer.
Let's go.
I bought this ring.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
It's like the Aura ring collab they did. That's good.
That's your big splurge.
That's my big splurge.
That's amazing. Favorite food and why?
Favorite food. I feel like this one changes. Consistently, I would probably say pizza, probably.
Yeah.
I'm a simple man.
Lines up with your Florence pick.
It does. It does.
Could be worse.
It's a different style pizza, though.
Yeah. Oh, do you have what style pizza do you like? Do you have a pref?
Am I gonna get judged if I say like pan or deep dish? Like
I have a proclivity of very controversial food views. So
all right, let's hear one.
I'm a pineapple on pizza guy. Big fan of Chicago style pizza. Like Via 313 stellar.
The Illuminati's kind of guy. Like Gino's the
man.
Maybe even Ghirardelli's.
Yeah, probably Ghirardelli's is a little bit more my speed, but I don't know. Those are my big hot takes though. The pineapple on pizza gets people, and sometimes when I want to ride the lightning, I'll use ranch. Ranch dip, right? Yeah, I don't know for anybody. The pineapple, hey, sometimes you say it too weird. What with Noble Romans? There you go. This is OG shout out. I don't even know if they're still around, but that's I'm aging myself here. Favorite TikTok channel. What's your favorite follow on TikTok?
I'll refrain from plugging us.
Okay, well, obviously you guys, but outside of you.
I would probably say I like Captain Crankshaft.
Okay.
It's Cars page.
Yeah.
I love that one. That one's a cool one.
Amazing. It's so crazy how, and again, if you guys hear me referencing 1,000 True Fans, there's a great essay by Kevin Kelly. Go read it. It's amazing. But there is a crazy like soap guy that literally just makes and cuts soap. There's all these cool little like communities with communities on these channels, and it's interesting, especially when you start to. We didn't even talk about like Instagram or TikTok lives when you start to turn the conversation into two-way synchronous versus two-way asynchronous with comments, which is still a great interaction with your crowd. But like when you have this like synchronicity with lives, it starts to get to a really intimate, crazy place. You got the Morning Brew, so I have to ask, favorite newsletter outside of Morning Brew and Marketing Brew, because those are both stellar.
Ooh, I go between a few. I like the James Clear 321 newsletter. That one's a good one.
G.
Yeah, I mean, I like Shane Perry.
Knowledge Project, yeah, Farnham Street, another G.
I like that one.
Great taste.
One or two other ones that I really like. All of them are kind of more like life hack, productivity based stuff that I like to read. They're like short. I really don't care for really long newsletters.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm just like,
Got time for that.
Yeah.
Put it in a TikTok.
Yeah.
Make it a TikTok.
I'm a short form guy.
Let's go. Okay, last question. Dinner with 4 people, dead or alive. You're at the table. You're taking up 1 seat. You get to invite 3 people, fictional and non-fictional. Who's getting the invite for Simmy for dinner?
Bob Iger.
Oh, he's back, isn't he?
He is back.
So what a wild ride. That's a fantastic. I forget what the heck fantastic bio. Even crazier now that he's back.
Yeah, and it's wild, right? Because in that case, you know, a lot of leaders don't want to overstay. Like, they fall in this trap when they come back for a second or a third time. They're not usually as good.
Yeah.
Right?
It's the second and third acts can sometimes, especially at the same company, not really net out. I mean, I guess Jobs did, but to be fair, they were pretty much at the bottom anyways, right? It's pretty easy to go up from, or at least anything was up from there. Not that he didn't do an incredible turnaround thing, but what people forget is, not to sidetrack here, well, I guess a little bit, the majority of his fortune from the Pixar deal, not well, cultures. See, only bring on pros, people. Only pros. Okay, Bob Iger, Disney, amazing, or of Disney fame.
I would say Steve Schwartzman.
Ooh,
from Blackstone.
Interesting pick.
Yes, and it's because I read his book, which I now forget the title of, but it left such a big impact on me. Because not only did they create like one of the largest, investment firms of all time, but BlackRock spun out of Blackstone.
Yeah.
And I was like,
which is also massive.
Well, it's the biggest one. I think BlackRock is now bigger than Blackstone.
Really?
Yeah, that's like $1 trillion, whatever. And
wow,
that is one person where I'm just like, the fact that like he is like the epitome of just like, like he was always on top of his stuff, right timing. Like he was the one to buy out Sam Zell and his massive real estate portfolio. So it's just that book's phenomenal. So I would say another titan of industry being him. I would get Bob Iger, Steven Schwartzman, and then I'd probably say for the third one, I would probably defer to some kind of celebrity.
Oh,
mostly because I think I like this like content to commerce play.
Yeah.
Like if I can get a table where it's like creative minds and also the business side.
Mr. Beast, perhaps?
Yeah, maybe Mr. Beast.
He seems like a really interesting guy.
Yeah, let's round it out with Mr. Beast.
I mean, because if you launch a product now, I mean, having that inbuilt distribution, just king, right? I mean, Feastables is crushing it. He's going to be the first billionaire YouTuber, right? Has to be, right? Because I don't think Logan Paul is there yet, and he's probably the closest one that I can think of. That's incredible, man. That's incredible. I was actually talking to Jody of Sundays is doing some really cool stuff with there's like a cartel of YouTubers that just made a ton of money, already are kind of living their life, and they're like, hey dude, we just want to support cool D2C companies, like, and they have this whole investment vehicle. It's crazy. Like there's real money in YouTube, dude. You
know what? I'm gonna change my answer from Mr. Beast.
Got it kicked out, Mr. Beast.
Probably say like a Dwayne Johnson or like a.
He seems a little petty though. There's Ryan Reynolds. What?
One of those two.
His team just won. The soccer team won. They blocked a penalty. It was this crazy thing.
Actually,
what a crazy story that guy.
Yeah.
Just made a crap ton of money off the Mint Mobile. Like.
Dude's a baller. And what was it? Aviation Gen
made a ton of money as well. Like, that's a great pick. That's a great pick. Yeah, that's a great pick.
That rounds out our table.
Ryan Reynolds, Steve Schwartzman, Bob Iger. That's a dinner. Yeah. That's a dinner.
And Simmy there for shits and giggles.
That's it. Let's go. Let's go. Making TikToks. Dude, this is incredible. How can the people follow you? How can they get more involved? How can they work with Our Future? What are you looking forward to? This time's yours, my friend.
All right. So if you're trying to connect with me on Twitter, would love to have you.
Boom.
@_Simmy_.
We got to fix that, but I had a hard time finding you last time, and I know you.
That's my bad.
We'll get it. We'll put it in the show notes.
And then I would say if you need help, building audience via short form or building out any kind of content strategy around that, shoot me an email, simran@ourfuturehq.com.
Yeah, and we worked with them for a little while. They are fantastic, and now you guys have some a little bit more accessible budget options. They're doing some really cool things kind of across the board. So if you you have a little cash and you're really looking to explode your following, and not only that, just the structure and strategy that you brought to the way we were approaching podcasts, the way we were approaching content was just truly invaluable, man. You guys really get it, and on top of that, you're just a gem of a human and really fun to work with.
My man, thank you so much.
Yeah,
this is awesome.
Reach out to Simmy, get it done, get you some viral clips on the TikToks. If you want to get more involved with Triple Well, we are triplewell.com. Go get the best in class attribution, analytics. We even launched a little AI tool called Willy where you can actually chat with all your Triple Well data, figure out what your gross profit is, LTV, best channels, the whole kit and caboodle. And then speaking of newsletters, fantastic newsletter, obviously the Morning Brew and the Marketing Brew, but we also have one ourselves called Whale Mail. You can subscribe right at triplewell.com/whale mail. Okay, at the end of every show, we give away some merch. What's the safe word?
Safe word.
Yeah, so people have to email me whatever the word you say to get some merch.
Okay. Let's do ocean.
Ocean. Look at that, on brand. All right, email me, or actually, DM me at Robert Rahill or on LinkedIn, the word ocean, and then make sure you send me your size and the shipping address you want it to. If it is out of the United States, I will still ship it to you, but I also will need your email address. So the first people to DM me ocean on Twitter or LinkedIn, I'll get you some wellware. Simmy, this was great. We got to do it again. This is amazing. Awesome. All right, folks, that's another ROAS in the books. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.